So general consensus in the NBA these days is that winning is an incredibly complex puzzle, the result of hundreds of factors coming together. How good is your team at working the salary cap to optimize that ninth slot on the roster? Is the travel schedule set up to improve players' sleep patterns? What's the philosophy of the team's shooting coach? And look, those details are important. The good teams are typically the ones that execute those things well. But to be a great team, the truth is much simpler and much more harsh. The teams that have the best players tend to win. That's it. This is a league built on stars, and there aren't that many of them to go around. And if you miss out, you're not going to be the one who ends the season holding the trophy. That's why Kawhi Leonard had helicopters following him around as he made his free agency visits. That's why the Lakers were willing to risk tampering fines to court Anthony Davis. And that's why there was 2 years of league-wide hand-wringing over whether Giannis Antetokounmpo was going to sign the Supermax in Milwaukee. It's also why now, in the wake of Giannis's announcement that he is indeed re-upping with the Bucks, that the attention of the entire NBA is now shifting back to Houston and disgruntled superstar James Harden. You can have an opinion on whether you like Harden's style of play or not, or whether his approach to being a teammate corrodes locker rooms, and those are not small things. But when it comes to actual straight skills, there's no argument. James Harden is a basketball badass, period. He is one of the most prolific scorers in the 74-year history of the NBA. He has finished top 5 in MVP voting 6 of the last 7 years. If you are a team in need of a superstar, James Harden fits the bill in a way that few other humans on earth can. It is why, as soon as Giannis's pen hit paper in Milwaukee, the price of acquiring James Harden from Houston went right up. And it's also why, despite all that Harden has done in the past few weeks to act out, the Rockets are still tiptoeing around, hoping Harden will change his mind and want to stay. The thought has been that maybe if James actually got out there with John Wall and Boogie Cousins, he'd start having fun. And last night, they at least got their first taste of what that looked like. Sort of. It was his first preseason game, and Harden looked like a player who, well, hadn't really been through training camp, scoring 12 points on 3 of 10 shooting. And while he was not actually as out of shape as an unflattering screenshot circulating Twitter made him appear, more than once cameras did catch him catching his breath with his hands on his hips. Still, there were a few flashes of what might be. Late in the first quarter, we saw a sequence where Harden hit a trademark step-back 3. Boom. He drew a foul on another. Then he found P.J. Tucker in the corner with a nice pass that led to a bucket. So did any of that feel encouraging to James Harden? We still don't really know. Less than an hour ago, James made his first public comments in months. Take a listen.
Do you still want the Rockets to trade you? And if so, why?
Right now, I'm just focused on being here. Today was good. Yesterday felt really good being out there. The first time since the bubble. Haven't really had an opportunity to do a lot of 5-on-5 work.
James, what was the point that you were trying to get across when you went to Atlanta and Vegas when training camp was starting?
I was just training.
What were you training for?
The start of the NBA season.
How did going to Atlanta and Vegas help you there when the Rockets were starting training camp in Houston?
Just my personal trainers.
James, you obviously had a close relationship with Daryl for all those years, and I think you had a lot of trust in him. Do you have that same trust in Rafael Stone that he can put pieces around you?
We haven't had a conversation, so.
Haven't had a conversation. Front office, despite that, still hopeful that the more James plays with this group, the more he likes it, or at least the more his trade value will go up, and they can get another legit star in return. After all, winning in the NBA is indeed a puzzle, but no matter how well you put everything together around the edges, you can't complete it if you don't have that piece in the center. So, Zach, what is your biggest takeaway from the first preseason game last night and then listening to Harden just now?
You saw the press conference. He does not exactly look excited to be back to Houston, and other than that, he's dodging questions like Neo dodging bullets in the Matrix. It seems that the toothpaste is out of the tube, but again, Houston has time on its side. He has 2 years left. plus a player option, and it's a big player option in the third year. They don't have to rush. They haven't rushed. I think they've played this right. James is with the team. He's a proud guy. You just mentioned it. Top 5 in MVP 6 of the last 7 years. It's not like he's going to go out there and not compete. Might not be happy. He might pout a little bit. They have time. But look, we've seen this situation before, and rarely does it turn the other way where they start winning enough and his dreams of going to Brooklyn or Philly or wherever go away. So it seems like delaying the inevitable to me.
Yeah, well, kudos, by the way, when listening to that press conference to our colleague Tim McMahon, because just the inflection on training for what was phenomenal. Shout out, Tim. But it is interesting. How much do you think he is going to sort of blend with his teammates? Because we know on the court, you and I both said it, right? James Harden's going to be James Harden. He's going to try. But how much do you think in the locker room, on the team plane, that kind of thing, do you expect him to try to develop some chemistry with guys like John Wall and Boogie Cousins?
I mean, I think off the court is one thing. I think James generally seems pleasant to be around off the court. I don't think he's been a huge problem in that regard. On the court, I mean, let's face it, he hasn't blended with teammates in 5 years. He plays James ball, right, not basketball. And as long as and by the way, it's been massively effective. They almost won the championship. They almost got to the finals playing that way. He's one of the greatest offensive players in the history of the league. Play James ball all you want. But in Houston, he's going to continue to play that way. As long as he's there, it's his franchise, it's his team. They've catered everything to him up until now. He's going to play that way. That's the most interesting question. Let's say he goes to Philly. He's got Joel Embiid on his team. Joel Embiid, he's the incumbent guy in Philadelphia. He doesn't want to play James ball. Say he goes to Brooklyn. Kevin Durant, yeah, Kevin hasn't played a real game for Brooklyn yet. Kyrie Irving has. They didn't sign up to play James ball. Say he goes to Miami. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, they have this offense where shooters are running around doing crazy stuff, a lot of dribble handoffs. They don't want to play James ball, and that's going to be the interesting question is how willing is he to adapt if and when he gets to another team?
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.